Let's go back to that moment for a second. You are there in the most intimate embrace possible. The world outside the bedroom door has disappeared. It's just you, the sheets, the heat of the moment, and him. In this specific space, your heart is wide open. You are vulnerable in a way you aren't with anyone else on earth. And instinctively, you look for him. You tilt your head back, you open your eyes, and you search for his gaze. You want to see him seeing you. You want that electric confirmation that says, I am here with you and only you. But instead of meeting your eyes, you see his eyelids shut tight. In that split second, something in your stomach drops. It's a tiny silent rejection. Even if his body is close, his mind feels a million miles away. You might feel a sudden wave of loneliness wash over you, even though you are physically connected. And then the questions start. Why isn't he looking at me? Is he bored? Is he imagining I'm someone else? First, I need you to take a deep breath and listen to me closely. You are not being needy. You are not being insecure. What you are feeling is biological. As women, our brains are wired to equate intimacy with connection, and the primary bridge for that connection is eye contact. When you look into a partner's eyes, especially during intimacy, your brain releases a powerful cocktail of oxytocin, the bonding hormone. This is the chemical that makes you feel safe, claimed, and deeply attached. Evolution wired you this way. To your primal brain, eye contact means safety. It means the partner is present, attentive, and engaged. So when he closes his eyes, your brain stops receiving that signal. It feels like the connection has been severed. It feels like he has hung up the phone in the middle of the conversation. It is completely natural for you to interpret this as a withdrawal or a lack of interest. But here is the first secret we need to uncover today. Just because your brain interprets it as disconnection, that does not mean he is disconnected. In fact, as we are about to discover, his closed eyes might actually be the greatest compliment he can give you. But to understand why, we have to look at how differently his brain processes this moment compared to yours. The visual male paradox. We have all heard the cliche 1,000 times. Men are visual creatures. We are told that men fall in love with their eyes, that they are stimulated by what they see, and that visual attraction is their primary language of desire. And for the most part, science backs this up. The male brain often has a more developed visual cortex regarding sexual cues. He loves seeing your body. He loves watching you move. He loves the visual roadmap of your curves. So this creates a confusing paradox, doesn't it? If he is so visual, and if he finds you so attractive, why would he voluntarily turn the lights out? Why would he shut off his primary source of pleasure right at the peak of the experience? This contradiction is what drives so many women into a spiral of overthinking. You think if he thought I was beautiful, he wouldn't be able to take his eyes off me. But here is the psychological twist. Yes, men are visual to get aroused. Sight is the ignition key. It gets the engine running. But once the car is driving at full speed, once the physical sensation takes over, the visual input can actually become a distraction. Think of the human brain like a computer. It has a limited amount of processing power. It can only handle so much data at once. During intimacy, his brain is being flooded with an overwhelming amount of sensory information. There is the touch of your skin, the sound of your breath, the scent of your hair, the rhythm of the movement, and the intense physical pleasure building in his own body. If he keeps his eyes open, his brain has to process all of that plus a high-definition video feed of the room, the lighting, and your expressions. For many men, this is simply too much data to process at once. To truly feel the intensity of the touch, the brain instinctively shuts down the visual feed. It's not that he doesn't want to see you, it's that he wants to feel you more. By closing his eyes, he is redirecting all that neural energy from his optic nerve to his nerve endings. He is turning off the movie so he can focus entirely on the sensation. He isn't looking away because you aren't enough to look at. He is looking away because the feeling of you is so intense that he needs to shut out the world to handle it. The fear of fantasy. Now, we have to address the elephant in the room. We can talk about biology and sensory processing all day, but that doesn't silence the little voice in the back of your head that whispers the darkest possibility. What if he's thinking about someone else? This is the most painful interpretation of closed eyes. It is the fear that he is using his imagination to escape the reality of the moment. You worry that behind those closed lids, he is replaying a scene from a movie, thinking about a fantasy woman, or worst of all, remembering a past lover. This fear is potent because it makes you feel like a prop in your own love life. It makes you feel used. If he has to close his eyes to get to the finish line, does that mean you aren't enough to get him there on your own? I want to validate this fear because it is real and it hurts. And let's be honest, sometimes human beings do fantasize, but we need to distinguish between escapist fantasy and high enhancement fantasy. Just because his eyes are closed doesn't mean he has left the building. Often, when a man goes into his internal world, he isn't replacing you, he is enhancing the reality of you. The male imagination is a powerful amplifier. Later in this video, we're going to talk about the cinema of the mind, and you might be surprised to learn that even when his eyes are closed, the movie playing in his head is often starring you. He might be visualizing the curve of your waist that he saw 5 minutes ago, or replaying the way you looked at him when you first walked into the room. The internal world isn't always a place of betrayal. Often it is a place of focus. It is a way to take the physical sensation he is feeling with you right now and dial the volume up to 10. So while it is natural to feel that pang of jealousy when his eyes shut, try to pause that reaction. Don't assume he has gone to a place where you don't exist. There is a very strong chance that he has closed his eyes to lock you in, not to lock you out. In the next few minutes, we are going to learn how to tell the difference and how to read his body language to know exactly where his mind has gone. The biology of sensation, sensory overload, and the brain, now that we have acknowledged the emotional fear, that worry that he is drifting away from you, it is time to look at the hard science. Because when you understand the mechanics of the male brain, the entire narrative changes. You stop seeing his closed eyes as a sign of boredom, and you start seeing them for what they really are, a sign of a system running at maximum capacity. To understand this, we have to look at how the human brain processes pleasure. Think of your brain like a computer with a very specific amount of bandwidth. Every single thing you experience takes up a slice of that bandwidth. The temperature of the room, the sound of music, the smell of perfume, the sight of the pillows, all of these are data streams that your brain has to constantly analyze. Under normal circumstances, your brain handles this multitasking easily. But intimacy is not a normal circumstance. During high arousal, the brain is flooded with dopamine and norepinephrine. It is lighting up like a city grid during a power surge, specifically somatosensory cortex. The part of the brain responsible for processing touch is screaming for attention. It wants to feel every inch of contact, every change in pressure, and every shift in temperature. But here is the catch: the visual cortex, the part of the brain that processes what you see, is a massive energy hog. It takes up a huge amount of neural processing power. So when the physical sensation starts to climb toward a peak, the brain faces a conflict. It has too much input coming in. It cannot process the high definition visual image of you and the overwhelming physical sensation of you at the same time without diluting one of them. So what does it do? It performs a function called sensory gating. This is a fancy term for what happens when you turn down the radio in the car so you can see the street address you are looking for. Your brain instinctively blocks out one sense so it can focus entirely on another. When a man closes his eyes during intimacy, he is essentially turning down the radio. He is cutting the video feed. He isn't doing this because the video feed, the side of you, isn't beautiful. He is doing it because the touch signal is becoming the priority. If he keeps his eyes open, his attention is split. He is 50% feeling and 50% seeing. But when he shuts them, he becomes 100% feeling. He is allocating every ounce of his mental energy to the physical reality of your body against his. This is why you will often notice that he closes his eyes right as things get most intense. It is a direct correlation. The more pleasure he feels, the less he can afford to look. So the next time you see those eyelids flutter shut, try to reframe your immediate reaction. Do not think, he's leaving. Think, he is overwhelmed. He is cutting out the world so that his brain has nothing left to process but you. Going inward to feel outward. Let's take this concept out of the laboratory and into the bedroom. We know the brain is managing its resources, but what does that actually feel like for him? And more importantly, why should you find it romantic rather than isolating? We need to reframe the concept of going inward. In our culture, we often confuse looking at someone with paying attention to someone. We think that if eye contact breaks, attention breaks. But in the realm of deep physical intimacy, the opposite is often true. Think about the environment of a bedroom. Even in a romantic setting, there are distractions. There is the shadow on the wall, the pattern of the sheets, the stray piece of clothing on the floor, the light coming in from the hallway. If his eyes are open, his brain is constantly scanning these trivial details. He is anchored in the physical room. But when he closes his eyes, the room disappears, the furniture disappears, the time of day disappears, and in that self-imposed darkness, what is left? Only you. By closing his eyes, he is removing the barrier of the environment. He is entering a space where the only reality that exists is the texture of your skin and the rhythm of your movement. He is going onward to feel outward more deeply. In this state, his other senses are heightened. Without visual distraction, his sense of touch becomes microscopic. He can feel the heat rising from your skin. He can feel the subtle tension in your muscles. He can hear the tiny changes in your breathing. He is no longer distracted by the surface level visual of how you look. He is completely immersed in the profound reality of how you feel. This is a form of deep meditative focus. Think about how a musician looks when they are playing a complicated, beautiful solo. They almost always close their eyes. Are they bored with the music? Are they thinking about their grocery list? No, they are closing their eyes to become one with the sound. They are shutting out the audience so they can merge with the instrument. That is exactly what your partner is doing. You are the music. He is closing his eyes not to ignore the song, but to hear every single note without interference. He is trying to memorize the sensation of you. So when you see him drift into that dark, quiet space, do not feel left behind. Realize that he has just stepped into a private room where nothing else is allowed to enter. Not his work stress, not the messy room, not his insecurities. In that dark room behind his eyelids, it is just him and the feeling of you. That is an abandonment. That is exclusive, undivided attention in its purest, most primal form. The moment of surrender, there is one final biological and psychological reason for the closed eyes that we rarely talk about, and it has to do with control. We live in a world where men are conditioned from a very young age to be stoic. They are taught to be cool, to be composed, and to always look like they are in control of the situation. A man is often hyper aware of how it is his expressions. He keeps his guard up, but true sexual ecstasy is the opposite of composure. It is messy. It is raw. It is a complete and total loss of control. When a human being, man or woman, approaches the peak of pleasure, the face does involuntary things. We grimace, we frown, we bare our teeth. It is often called the agony of ecstasy because to an outsider, extreme pleasure can look almost like pain. It isn't pretty, and it certainly isn't cool. For many men, this loss of facial control is subconsciously vulnerable. If he is looking at you, he is aware that you are looking at him. He becomes self-conscious. He might think, do I look weird? Is my face making a strange expression? Am I sweating too much? This deeper layer of self-consciousness can actually act as a brake, stopping him from fully letting go. Closing his eyes is a shield. It is a way for him to surrender to the wave of pleasure without worrying about how he looks while he rides it. It is his way of saying, I am safe enough with her to stop performing. He is granting himself permission to be unpolished. He creates a private curtain behind which he can grimace, moan, and lose his composure without feeling judged. If you have a partner who is typically strong, silent, or on charge in his daily life, you will see this even more often. The bedroom is the only place where he is allowed to lose control. His closed eyes are the signal that he is finally dropping the weight of the world. He is trusting you enough to be messy, to be overwhelmed, and to be completely undone by his desire for you. So if you see his face twist and his eyes squeeze shut, do not take it as a sign that he is hiding something. Take it as a sign of his trust. He is trusting you with his most ungoverned self. He is letting the mask fall. And in a world where he has to wear a mask for almost everyone else, that is a precious gift. He isn't hiding from you. He is unraveling because of you. The psychology of vulnerability, visual stimulation, there's emotional safety. We have talked about biology and we have talked about sensory processing. But now we need to step into the deeper waters of human emotion because sex is never just a physical act. It is a psychological battlefield where our deepest desires collide with our deepest fears. For many women, eye contact is the ultimate safety net. It says, I am with you. But have you ever considered that for a man, sustained eye contact can sometimes feel like an interrogation? Society puts an immense amount of pressure on men to be the architects of the sexual experience. They are taught that they need to be confident, dominant, skilled, and unwavering. When he is looking at you and you are looking back at him, he is acutely aware that he is being perceived. He knows he is on stage. The gaze is heavy. It carries weight. It carries expectations. In moments of profound emotional intimacy, when the act shifts from just having sex to truly making love, that weight can become overwhelming. The sheer intensity of your love, looking right back at him, can be terrifying. It is raw, unfiltered exposure. For a man who isn't used to expressing deep emotion verbally, seeing that much emotion in your eyes can trip a circuit breaker in his mind. Is too much to process while he is also trying to stay physically composed. So he closes his eyes. This isn't him shutting you out. It is him creating a safety container for his own emotions. By cutting the visual cord, he removes the pressure to perform or to react perfectly to your gaze. He enters a space where he doesn't have to be the confident lover or the strong protector. He can just be a soul feeling another soul in the dark behind his eyelids. He is free to feel the wave of love you are giving him without flinching. He doesn't have to worry if his eyes look watery. He doesn't have to worry if he looks too vulnerable. Think of it like a child who covers their eyes when they are feeling shy or overwhelmed by a big emotion. It is a primitive reflex. By closing his eyes, he is essentially saying, this feeling is so big, I need to hide inside myself to hold it all. If you are with a man who is typically emotionally guarded, someone who doesn't cry easily or talk about his feelings often, this is even more common. The bedroom might be the only place where he feels deep emotion. And because that muscle is weak, he needs to protect it. He closes his eyes to feel safe enough to experience the love you are offering him without the terrifying pressure of having to look the part while he does it. The performance anxiety shield, there is another very practical psychological factor at play here, and it is one that men rarely admit to their partners because of pride. But if we are going to be honest today, we have to talk about it. We have to talk about the clock. For many men, the bedroom is a place of silent performance anxiety. There is a constant ticking clock in the back of his mind. Am I lasting long enough? Is she enjoying this? Am I going to finish too soon? This anxiety is a powerful mood killer, but it is also a powerful driver of behavior. We spoke earlier about how visual input is a stimulant. Seeing your pleasure, your movement, your beauty is the gas pedal. It accelerates his arousal. Sometimes it accelerates it too much. If he feels himself getting too close to the point of no return too early, he needs to find a way to pump the brakes. He needs to calm his nervous system down instantly. Closing his eyes is the most effective, immediate way to do this. When he shuts his eyes, he cuts off the visual stimulation that is driving his excitement over the edge. It is a way of chemically cooling down his brain just a fraction of a degree. He is retreating into the darkness to regain control of his body so that he can last longer for you. This is a critical reframe. You might be looking at his closed eyes and thinking he's bored. Meanwhile, inside his head, he is thinking, she looks so incredible that if I don't close my eyes right now, this is going to be over in 10 seconds. He is fighting a battle against his own biology to extend the pleasure of the experience. It is an act of service, not an act of dismissal. If you notice that he tends to close his eyes during the most rhythmic or intense parts of the act, this is almost certainly what is happening. He is managing his arousal levels. He is trying to stay in the game. It is important to understand this because if you force eye contact in moments, if you grab his face and demand he look at you, you might inadvertently push him over the edge before he is ready, or break his concentration so much that he loses the rhythm entirely. His closed eyes are a tool. They are his way of saying, I want this to last. He is managing the fire so it doesn't burn out too quickly. He is sacrificing the visual pleasure of seeing you in order to prioritize the physical pleasure of staying with you. That is not selfishness. That is dedication. The shame barrier, we have explored safety and we have explored anxiety, but there is one final, deeper layer to the psychology of vulnerability that is harder to talk about. It is the concept of the shame barrier. This doesn't mean he is ashamed of you or even ashamed of the sex. It runs deeper than that. It is about the fundamental human struggle with worthiness. Psychologists have long understood that for many people, men included, being on the receiving end of pure unconditional love is actually quite difficult. It is uncomfortable. When you look at him with total adoration, when you open yourself to him completely, you are shining a very bright light on him. If he has any deep-seated insecurities, if he has a subconscious voice that tells him he isn't good enough or that he is flawed, that bright light can be painful. It exposes him. To be fully seen is to be fully known, and for a man who carries hidden burdens or insecurities, being fully known is terrifying. Closing his eyes can be a subconscious defense mechanism against this intensity. It is a way to accept the pleasure and the love you are giving him without having to confront the mirror of his own worthiness. It acts as a filter. With his eyes closed, he can focus on the physical sensation of love, which feels good, while dialing down the emotional intensity of being perceived, which feels scary. He creates a tiny distance, not because he doesn't love you, but because he doesn't know how to handle being loved that much. This is often why men who have trauma in their past or who struggle with self-esteem are more likely to keep their eyes closed during the most tender moments. They're drinking in the love with a straw because drinking it from the fire hose is too much for their system to handle. If you sense this is the case with your partner, the worst thing you can do is take it personally. His closed eyes are not a rejection of your love. They are his way of surviving it. He is pacing himself emotionally. He is allowing himself to feel you, touch you, and be inside you, but he needs the darkness to feel safe from the judgment he fears, even if that judgment is only coming from inside his own head. He is hiding so that he can stay. He is shielding himself so that he doesn't have to run away. And in time, with enough safety and trust, those eyes may start to open. But for now, the darkness is what allows him to accept the gift you are giving him. The truth about fantasy, the gray area enhancing this. Replacing, we have reached the part of the conversation that requires the most courage. We have discussed biology, anxiety, and vulnerability. But we have to return to the question that keeps you awake at night. The question that gnaws at your self-esteem: is he thinking about someone else? It is the oldest fear in the book. You worry that his closed eyes are a doorway to a secret life where you don't exist. You worry that he is picturing an ex-girlfriend, a coworker, or a celebrity crush, and that you are just a physical vessel for a fantasy he wishes were true. I am not going to lie to you and say this never happens. Human beings are complex, and yes, sometimes minds wander. But psychology tells us that the reality of male fantasy is often far more nuanced and far less threatening than you might think. We need to draw a clear, sharp line between replacing, and replacing is toxic. That is when a partner mentally swaps you out for someone else to get aroused. But enhancing is something entirely different, and it is incredibly common in healthy, loving relationships. Enhancement is when he uses his imagination to make the reality of you even more intense. Think about it this way. Have you ever replayed a favorite memory of the two of you in your head? Maybe the first time you kissed or a vacation you took. When you do that, You aren't cheating on the present moment. You are using a mental highlight reel to amplify the feelings of love you have for him right now. Men do a version of this during sex. When he closes his eyes, he might not be seeing a stranger. He might be visualizing a highlight reel of you. He might be picturing the way you looked in that dress at dinner 2 hours ago. He might be replaying the image of your face from the last time you were intimate. He might be visualizing a specific curve of your body that drives him crazy, zooming in on it with his mind's eye to heighten his arousal. In this scenario, his closed eyes aren't rejecting you. They are focusing on you. He is using his visual memory to stack layers of desire on top of the physical sensation. He is essentially multitasking, feeling the real you, while simultaneously watching the best of clips of you in his mind. This is a tool of engagement, not escape. He is using every resource available to him, his body and his mind, to reach the peak of pleasure with you. If he keeps his eyes open, he is limited to one perspective. If he closes them, he can access a library of images of you that make him want you even more. So before you assume the worst, consider that the woman he is fantasizing about might actually be sitting right there in the room with him. The cinema of the mind. To fully understand what is happening behind those closed eyelids, we have to appreciate the creative power of the male brain. We often call this the cinema of the mind. Sexual desire is not just about friction. It is about narrative. It is about the story. For many men, the visual component of sex is so important that when they can't see everything they want to see in reality because of lighting angles or proximity, brain automatically steps in to fill the gaps. It becomes a director. When he closes his eyes, he might be stepping into the director's chair. In reality, sex can be awkward. It's close up, it's blurry. But in his mind, he can construct a perfect cinematic version of what is happening. He might be visualizing the two of you from a third-person perspective, watch and act as if he were a camera on the ceiling. He might be adding lighting to the scene in his head. He might be imagining the scenario is slightly more forbidden or intense than it actually is. This is not about disassociation. It is about erotic augmentation. He is taking the raw footage of your intimacy and adding special effects to make it feel even more explosive. For example, he might close his eyes to vividly imagine the expression on your face that he can't currently see because of the position you are in. He constructs the image of your pleasure in his mind because that image turns him on. This is a crucial distinction. If he were thinking about his grocery list, that would be disassociation. But if he is thinking about you and him in a highly stylized, erotic way, that is deep engagement. He is working to keep his arousal high. He is actively participating in the creation of the pleasure. This mental cinema allows him to bypass the distractions of reality, the cramp in his leg, the sweat in his eye, and stay locked in the erotic flow. It is a bridge over the clumsy parts of reality. You do this too, perhaps without realizing it. Have you ever closed your eyes and imagined he is a character in a romance novel, or simply focused on the energy of his dominance or his tenderness? You are adding a narrative layer to the physical touch. He is doing the same thing visually. He is painting a picture on the back of his eyelids, and 9 times out of 10, you are the star of that picture. He is just directing the scene to make sure it has the perfect ending. It is a sign that he is mentally invested in making this experience as good as it can possibly be, using the full power of his imagination to fuel his desire for you. When it is a red flag, we have spent a lot of time reassuring you, and I stand by everything I have said. Most of the time, closed eyes are a sign of focus, sensory processing, and deep connection. But I promised you the truth, not just comfort. And the truth is, sometimes your gut instinct is right. Sometimes closed eyes are a sign of avoidance. Sometimes they are a wall he puts up because he isn't fully there. As your guide, I need to give you the tools to tell the difference. We cannot just look at the eyes, we have to look at the whole picture. If his eyes are, how do you know if he is in the zone with you or checking out on you? You have to look for the symptoms of disassociation. The first red flag is mechanical rhythm. When a man is lost in the pleasure of you, his body moves in response to yours. There is a fluidity. But when a man is lost in a fantasy about someone else or just trying to get it over with, his movement often becomes robotic. It feels like a piston. It feels disconnected from your reactions. If his eyes are closed and he is pounding away without noticing if you are enjoying it, he is likely watching a movie in his head where you aren't the co-star. The second red flag is silence. As we discussed, closing eyes usually heightens the other senses. If he is going inward to feel you, he should be vocal. You should hear his breath change. You might hear groans or whispers. But if his eyes are closed and he is dead silent, holding his breath, face blank, he might be trying to concentrate on a mental image to the exclusion of everything else. That is a sign of checking out. The third and most important red flag happens after the act. This is the re-entry. When the moment is over and he opens his eyes, what does he do? If he was just overwhelmed by sensory input, the first thing he will want to do is reconnect. He will look at you. He will touch you. He will smile. The transition from closed eyes to open eyes will feel like coming home. But if he was using a toxic fantasy to replace you, opening his eyes will feel like waking up from a dream he didn't want to end. He might look away immediately. He might roll over and check his phone. He might seem cold or distant or avoid eye contact right after finishing. That post-coital shame or distance is the biggest indicator that his mind was somewhere it shouldn't have been. If you see these signs, mechanical rhythm, total silence, and coldness afterward, then yes, his closed eyes might be a barrier, and that is a conversation you deserve to have. But if he is vocal, responsive, and comes back to you with love the moment it's over, then you can rest easy. The darkness was just a tunnel, and he came right back to you at the end of it. The mirror effect, why are you watching? The spectator trap, we have spent the last few chapters acting as detectives. We have analyzed his brain, his biology, his potential fantasies, and his body language. We have put his closed eyelids under a microscope to figure out what they mean for you. But now I want to do something a little unexpected. I want to gently turn the camera around. I want to ask you a question that might feel a little uncomfortable, but is absolutely necessary for your happiness. If he is lost in the moment, why think about the dynamic we have described. We have established that he has likely closed his eyes to immerse himself fully in the feeling of the act. He has let go of the visual world to fall into the physical world. He is 100% a participant. But if your eyes are wide open, scanning his face, checking his reaction, and analyzing his eyelids, what are you? You are not a participant. You are a spectator. This is the spectator trap. It is a psychological state where one partner stops experiencing intimacy and starts monitoring intimacy instead of being inside the shared experience. You are standing on the outside looking in. You have become an audience of one, watching a performance to see if it is going well, rather than an actor on the stage making it happen. There is a profound irony here. You feel lonely because his eyes are closed, but the very act of watching him is what is creating the distance. You are physically present, but mentally you are in analysis mode. You are looking for evidence of love rather than feeling the love that is happening to your body. When you stare at him while he is in a trance-like state, you are essentially waiting for him to validate you. You are waiting for a visual signal that says you are doing a good job. But intimacy isn't a test, and he isn't the judge. By fixating on his face, you are depriving yourself of the very connection you are craving. You are so busy worrying about where he has gone that you have forgotten to be present yourself. You are the one who has left the room, not him. You have left the realm of sensation to enter the realm of observation, insecurity, vis, immersion. Why do we do this? Why is it so hard for women to close their eyes and let go in the same way men do? The answer often lies in the battle between control and surrender. For many women, keeping their eyes open is a subconscious defense mechanism. It is a form of vigilance. Deep down, there's a voice that says, if I close my eyes, I lose control. If I stop watching, how will I know if he is still with me? How will I know if he likes it? This is insecurity masquerading as connection. You convince yourself that by keeping your eyes open, you are being present and attentive. You tell yourself you are just looking at him because you love him. And while that is partly true, if you are honest with yourself, a large part of that gaze is about safety. You are scanning for micro expressions. You are checking for signs of boredom. You are acting as the supervisor of the sex life. But here is the harsh truth. You cannot be in your head and in your body at the same time. As long as your brain is processing visual data, checking his eyelids, looking at his expression, scanning the room, it is not fully processing touch. You are robbing yourself of your own pleasure. You are allocating your brain power to his experience instead of yours. This monitor behavior is the enemy of ecstasy. True pleasure requires a kind of selfish surrender. It requires you to stop worrying about whether he is having a good time and trust that he is. It requires you to stop worrying about whether you look pretty and focus on how you feel. When you keep your eyes open to analyze him, you are signaling to your own brain that you are not safe enough to let go. You are staying on guard. And the tragedy is he can feel that. Even with his eyes closed, he can feel that you are tense. He can feel that you are watching rather than being. So the disconnection you feel isn't just coming from his closed eyes. It is coming from your open ones. It is coming from the fact that he is floating in the river of sensation while you are standing on the riverbank watching him float, wondering why you aren't wet. The only way to fix it is to jump in. The invitation to join him. So what is the solution? How do we break this cycle of him checking out and you watching him check out? The solution is simple, but it requires courage. Meet him in the dark. The next time you see his eyes flutter shut, I want you to resist the urge to panic. Resist the urge to tap him on the shoulder or stare at him waiting for him to come back. Instead, I want you to take it as an invitation. Close your eyes too. Join him in that private world. There is a phenomenon we can call the blindfold effect, but you don't need a blindfold to do it. When two people close their eyes simultaneously during intimacy, the dynamic shifts instantly. The reliance on visual cues vanishes, and the reliance on touch, sound, and energy skyrockets. If you close your eyes, you are forced to feel what he is feeling. You are forced to navigate his body by touch alone. You will hear the sounds of his breath more clearly. You will feel the heat of his skin more intensely. And suddenly, you won't feel left out anymore. You will realize that the place he went to isn't a place away from you. It is a place deeper into the connection. By closing your eyes, you level the playing field. You stop being the watcher and become the partner. This is also a psychological power move. It signals to him that you are just as lost in the pleasure as he is. It tells him, I am enjoying this so much I can't even look at you. And ironically, that is often what makes a man open his eyes. When he feels you let go, when he feels you surrender to the moment, he will often open his eyes to look at you because he wants to see the woman who is enjoying herself that much. So stop standing outside the door waiting for him to come out. Open the door and walk in. Close your eyes, take a deep breath, and trust that the connection is still there, even if you can't see it. You might find that the most profound intimacy of your life happens when neither of you is looking at anything at all. Decoding the micro signals, the breath and the grip. We've talked a lot about what is happening inside his mind, but let's get practical. You are there in the moment and his eyes are closed. You have closed your eyes too, trying to join him, but a part of you still needs confirmation. You need a way to know without asking if he is truly with you. Since you cannot read his eyes, you have to learn to read the rest of his body. The body has a language that is much harder to fake than facial expressions. The first and most reliable signal is what I call the grip of desire. When a man is checking out or disassociating, when he is bored or thinking about baseball to pass the time, his extremities tend to go limp. His hands might rest passively on your hips or the bed. He becomes a passenger in the experience. But when a man closes his eyes because he is overwhelmed by the sensation of you, his hands become active anchors. Look for the tension in his fingers. Is he gripping your waist? Is he tangling his fingers in your hair? Is he pulling you closer, trying to eliminate every millimeter of space between your bodies? This clutching instinct is primal. It is his body's way of saying, I am holding on to this feeling. Even if his eyelids are shut tight to block out the world, his hands are frantically trying to map your geography. Next, pay attention to his breathing pattern. This is a subtle but powerful clue. If he is distracted or bored, his breathing will often remain steady, rhythmic, and shallow, almost like he is jogging. He is on autopilot. But if he is deeply immersed in intimacy, his breath will be chaotic. It will be ragged. You will hear sharp intakes of air through his teeth. You will feel his chest heaving against yours. This disordered breathing is a physiological sign that his nervous system is firing on all cylinders. If his eyes are closed but his grip is tight and his breath is wild, do not worry for a second. He isn't gone. He is right there, holding on to you for dear life in the middle of the storm. The sounds of presence, if the eyes are the windows to the soul, the voice is the doorway to the nervous system. When the visual channel shuts down, the auditory channel often blows wide open. In the absence of eye contact, sound becomes the primary way he communicates his presence to you. We need to talk about the soundtrack of intimacy. Many women mistakenly believe that a silent man is a focused man, and while some men are naturally quiet, total silence combined with closed eyes can sometimes be a sign of isolation. It can feel like he is in a bubble. However, if he is closing his eyes to feel you more, that feeling usually needs an escape valve. That escape valve is sound. Listen closely. Are you hearing low, involuntary groans? Are you hearing the friction of his breath catching in his throat? These are what psychologists call vocalizations of surrender. They are involuntary. He isn't making them perform for you. They are being squeezed out of him by the intensity of the pleasure. If his eyes are closed, but the room is filled with the sound of his reaction to you, that is a massive green flag. It means he is not filtering his experience. He is letting you hear what he feels. And then there is the most intimate sound of all, the whisper. Does he whisper your name? Does he murmur disjointed phrases like, you feel so good, or don't stop? When a man speaks to you while his eyes are closed, he is bridging the gap between his internal world and your external reality. He is in his trance, but he is bringing you in there with him. He is verbally confirming that you are the source of the pleasure. If you are ever unsure, try this. When his eyes are closed, whisper something to him. Tell him how good he feels. If he groans or tightens his grip in response, you have your answer. He is listening. He is tuned into your frequency. The visual feed is off, but the connection is very, very loud. The afterglow reconnection, finally, we arrive at the most critical moment of all. The act itself is important, but if you really want to know what his closed eyes meant, you have to look at what happens the second the act is over. I call this the re-entry phase. Think of his closed eyes as a deep dive into the ocean. He held his breath and went under the surface to experience the depth. But eventually he has to come up for air. The moment he breaks the surface, the moment the physical intensity subsides, is the moment of truth. What is the very first thing he does? If he was using his closed eyes to fantasize about someone else or to disassociate from the relationship, he will likely stay underwater. He might keep his eyes closed for a long time, roll away, check his phone, or mumble a quick "that was good" before turning his back. There is a lingering coldness. The disconnection continues even after the physical need is met. But if he was closing his eyes simply to process the overwhelming pleasure of loving you, the right entry will be a return to connection. Usually within seconds of catching his breath, his eyes will fly open and they will seek you. He will look for your face. He will look for your eyes. It is an instinctual check-in. He wants to see you. He wants to make sure you are okay. He wants to share the afterglow. This moment is often accompanied by what we call the anchor touch. He might brush the hair out of your face, kiss your forehead, or pull you into a cuddle while looking you in the eye. This is his way of saying, I went away to feel the pleasure, but I came back to be with the person. If you get this moment, this warm, soft, open-eyed connection immediately after the fireworks, then everything that happened during the act was pure. You don't need to worry about where he went during the storm. As long as he crashes his boat right back onto your shores when it's over, that final look tells you everything you need to know. You were the destination all along. How to handle it, the gentle test. We have reached the point in our journey where knowledge must turn into action. You understand biology, you understand psychology, but what do you actually do in the moment when the room goes dark, his eyes close, and that familiar wave of loneliness starts to creep in? You might feel the urge to shake him, to stop moving, or to ask, are you okay? But those reactions often kill the mood. They jerk him out of his sensory trance and replace pleasure with confusion. Instead, I want to give you a few gentle tests. These are subtle, playful ways to check his connection level without breaking the spell. Think of them as tiny invitations for him to come back to the surface. The first test is the whisper anchor. When his eyes are closed and you feel him drifting ear right into that sensitive spot, and simply whisper his name. Do not say it like a question, Mike. Say it like a secrets, Mike. The brain is wired to prioritize our own names above almost any other sound. If he is lost in the pleasure of you, hearing his name will act as a grounding cord. He should respond immediately, a groan, a squeeze of your hand, or a smile. If he ignores his own name, he is likely disassociating. But 99% of the time, this tiny sound is enough to make him open his eyes and look at you for a split second just to acknowledge the voice. The second test is the rhythm shift. If he is operating on autopilot, he will settle into a predictable rhythm. To test his presence, change the tempo, slow down significantly, or stop moving for just a heartbeat. If he is with you, his body will react instantly to the change. He will open his eyes to see why the rhythm stopped, or he will adjust his movement to match yours. This proves that even though his eyes are closed, his focus is entirely locked on your body. He is responsive. The third test is the direct invitation. If you really need to see his eyes to feel safe, ask for it, but ask for it as a favor, not a demand. Don't say, why aren't you looking at me? Say, open your eyes for a second. I want to see you. Make it sexy. Make it sound like you are the one who is hungry for the sight of him. Most men will respond to this request with enthusiasm because it frames eye contact as a form of desire, not an obligation. He isn't being scolded, he is being seduced. By inviting him to look, you turn the interrogation into a shared moment of intensity, verbalizing the need sometimes. The gentle tests aren't enough. Sometimes this is a pattern that genuinely leaves you feeling disconnected over the long term. If you are a woman who needs visual connection to feel loved, and your partner is a man who needs visual sensory deprivation to feel pleasure, you have a mismatch. But a mismatch is not a deal breaker. It is just a negotiation. The key is how you talk about it. Most women wait until they are frustrated or feeling rejected, and then they say something like, you never look at me anymore, or why do you always close your eyes? Is something wrong? This immediately puts him on the defensive. He feels criticized for how he experiences pleasure. He might shut down even more. Instead, I want you to have this conversation outside of the bedroom when you are both clothed, happy, and relaxed. And I want you to use a specific script that frames your need as a compliment, not a complaint. It goes something like this. Realized something the other day. I get so turned on when you look at me while we're being intimate. It makes me feel so connected to you. I know it's intense, but could we try to keep eye contact a little more next time? I just miss seeing your eyes at that moment. Notice the difference? You aren't attacking what he is doing. You close your eyes too much. You are praising what you want him to do. It turns me on when you look at me. You are teaching him the recipe for your arousal. You are telling him, if you do X, you get more of Y. Men are goal-oriented. If he knows that looking at you makes you more excited, more passionate, and more uninhibited, he will make a conscious effort to keep those eyelids open. You can even compromise. Tell him, I know it's intense, So you don't have to stare at me the whole time. But maybe right at the end or right at the beginning, can we make sure we lock eyes by giving him permission to look away sometimes? You take the pressure off. You validate his need to go onward for the sensation while also advocating for your need to go outward for the connection. It is not about changing who he is. It is about adjusting the dance so that both of you feel seen, even in the dark. The beauty of the inner world, final empowerment, reassurance. We have traveled a long way together in this video. We started with a moment of doubt, that sinking feeling in the pit of your stomach when you look for him, and he isn't looking back. We walk through the biology of the male brain, the psychology of sensory overload, and the vulnerable truth about how men protect their emotions. But if you take only one thing away from our time together today, I want it to be this: you are not invisible. In fact, the reality is likely the exact opposite. You are so visible, so tangible, and so overwhelming to his senses that he has to shut out the rest of the universe just to handle the intensity of you. It is easy to let our insecurities tell us stories. It is easy to think, if he loved me, he would look at me. But love is not always a visual act. Sometimes love is a feeling so big that it requires total darkness to be fully understood. When he closes his eyes, he isn't leaving the room, he is entering a sanctuary. And in that sanctuary, there is no work, there is no stress, there are no distractions. There is only the imprint of your skin on his. He is memorizing you. He is etching this moment into his nervous system in a way that a photograph never could. So the next time you are together and you see his eyelids flutter shut, I want you to make a choice. You can choose to stand on the outside and worry, or you can choose to believe in the power of your own touch. I challenge you to let go of the need to be seen with eyes and embrace the need to be felt with the soul. Trust that you are enough. Trust that the man holding you is holding you, because there is nowhere else in the world he would rather be. He isn't hiding from you. He is drowning in you. And that is the most beautiful compliment a lover can give. So tonight, don't be afraid of the dark. Close your eyes, take a deep breath, and meet him there. You might just find that when you stop looking for proof of his love, you finally start to feel it. Thank you for allowing me to guide you through this sensitive topic. You are magnetic, you are desirable, and you are worthy of a love that feels just as good as us. Now, go and own that moment.